Welcome to Shamanism, Metaphysics, and Grace. I'm Lauren Hubele, student of shamanism and teacher of the tree medicine called Gemmotherapy. I'll be playing the role of inquirer here with my dear colleague, friend, and mentor, Jyoti Wind, shamanic practitioner, astrologer, and poet. Jyoti, welcome.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to what we get into today.
Well, Jyoti, I have a list of questions. We will see how far we go, but thinking about our listeners today and our title that you have so beautifully pulled together, Shamanism, Metaphysics, and Grace, I think it only makes sense that we begin with the word shamanism. And help me remember where shamanism first developed.
Okay. So before I step in there, I would just like to offer something.
Beautiful.
Ancestors, surround me in creative flames. Envelop me in your dreaming. May you live long in my heart. So with that, we kind of ask for the ancestors' presence and wisdom to also be here with us today. So shamanism came out of the steppes from the Tungus tribe up in Siberia. And that's where the oldest origins show up from. Every indigenous tribe, and we're all from indigenous roots one way or another, whether it's Celtic, Germanic, or Native American, or Native South American. There was always a medicine person in the tribe that bound the wounds, the physical wounds. And there was always a medicine person, a shaman, who tended to the psychological and spiritual well-being of the tribe. And so shamans were the intermediaries between this world and the other world, which in shamanism is called non-ordinary reality. This is ordinary reality as we know it, and there is a non-ordinary reality alongside of this world. And in shamanism, we make a journey. That's why they're called journeys. We gather our protective spirits and we journey to that other world for experiences and wisdom and knowledge and exploration. And so the shaman person is the one that helps teach how to do that, how to bridge the worlds, how to, in a sense, get from here to there. And why? Why would we want to do that? Because shamanism is called the path of direct experience, direct revelation. So it's not about hiring someone or petitioning someone to be that intermediary between you and wisdom, between you and deity. So as you practice shamanism, learn it and practice it, you become your own intermediary in a sense. You become the one seeking the truth, looking for answers for yourself and perhaps for others. And you don't need someone else to define it for you and to counsel you in a way, like going to a priest, let's say. Priests are fine. Catholicism is fine. All the religions that employ priests, good to go. They serve, everything serves its purpose in this life. And yet you can access those wisdom sources yourself through learning shamanic practices.
Beautiful. Beautiful. This sounds like such an empowering path and helping us step into our own autonomy.
It is. It really is. Shamanism it's been likened to Buddhism. I just listened to a podcast where Christina Pratt was interviewing David Kowaleski, who wrote the book Deathwalkers. And he said how much, after all these years of working in the shamanic world, how much it relates to him like Buddhism. It feels like Buddhism to him, where it's tapping into your own resources, finding a place of wisdom within yourself and trusting it.
Hmm. Hmm. You know, it's interesting, Jyoti, growing up culturally Catholic, the word shamanism always had some kind of triggers for me, like, ooh, that's scary, right? Like, don't want to go there. Yet, in recent times, it certainly called me in. And I've noticed that it's coming up for more and more people today. Do you have some thoughts around that?
Definitely, I definitely feel it's a shamanism renaissance in a sense. It's become popular as something to maybe try or look into, but in a deeper way, it's kind of sending out a signal to people that there's a different way of looking at things and there's a different way of working with your own growth. I mean, I've noticed in myself from doing shamanic practices that I'm calmer with life. I'm calmer with things that occur in day to day life. I have a richer, deeper inner life. I mean, I've always had a meditation practice from the time I was probably 25. And yet, this is both passive and active. So it satisfies different aspects of myself. It gives me a path of action, of taking action, of doing something, of looking for answers for myself and perhaps others. And yet it's very, very self reflective and gives me a good look at where I'm at in myself, in my own inner world, and how to navigate changes within that inner world.
And so, for folks who are experiencing this rapidly changing world that we live in, would you find that that's a reassuring practice, right? To step into?
Yes. Yes, for me, it has been that, and yet a deeper part of me knows anyway that everything's okay. And I don't say that lightly with some of the conditions in the world, but that you, as a soul who came here to have a human experience, you're okay. Things are okay. You know, you'll learn what you need to learn before you're done here, and you'll have the realizations you came to have, and that everything, in a sense, is working in a perfect order, even if sometimes you don't believe it or you can't see it. Um, I think a lot of the work I do with my clients is to let them know that everything's okay. Yes, you're faced with change, and yes, there's a lot of chaos in the world. And yet, a couple breaths, a couple moments in time to take yourself out of the frenetic movement and thinking and feeling and all that goes on in a regular day-to-day life, just taking yourself out of it for a few minutes, checking in with your deeper self, and you're good to go.
Yeah, beautiful. Jyoti, what are some of the tools that one might use as they begin to study and work with shamanism?
There's different kinds of tools, and I find that sometimes a combination of tools work well together, and and that's even outside of shamanism. I mean, I do yoga stretches and I meditate every morning, and I do my call to the directions every day and give thanks for my life and ask for guidance when I need it. So I have my own combination of things that work for me, and other people it may look a bit differently, of course. Within the shamanic realm, you develop certain strengths. When I first stepped into this world, for me, it became soul retrieval work, and it became how do I'm going to use a term here that I'll refer to
Sure.
in a while again. How do you become a hollow bone? How do you get out of your own way in order to help another person who's asked you and your guiding spirits for help? How do you acknowledge that we're not just here alone doing all this stuff ourselves, that we have guidance, that we have helping spirits? You can call them allies, animal totems, helping spirits. And from a shamanic point of view, when a human is born, the shaman calls the circle and asks a helping spirit to step forward to walk with this person in their life. Because we are so ultra civilized, in a sense, we have a real disconnect from our instinctual nature and from nature itself. Even though our cells are from nature, we are nature. But we seem to have this kind of separate relationship with nature, if at all. And so this helping spirit, or those helping spirits, walk with us and inform us and help us in the course of our life. And the more we are consciously aware of them and what they have to offer us, the more we can utilize their wisdom and their guidance. And these beings, I mean, in a very simple sense, this is their job. And so the more we allow them to work with us and do their job, the more everybody benefits, in a sense. So a combination of tools. I mean, everybody has to find their own combination of tools. So I meditate, I sit quiet, I'll do a short journey sometimes just to reconnect with my helping spirits, making sure that that connection between us is alive and rich and current and that kind of thing. Sometimes I hear them inside when I'm involved in something. Sometimes if I'm doing a journey, they are there, they are present, and I look to them for guidance and for direction and for their wisdom, what they have to show me, what they have to tell me, or to take me if I'm working for another person to find different parts of them that have been lost in the scheme of life and where life takes us, going and finding those parts to bring back to them. My guides, my helping spirits will take me there. And you could call it tools, I guess, but the most important tools to me are being able to listen and being able to trust.
Yeah. You know, Jyoti, in listening to you, I think a word you haven't used, but that comes to mind for me is it's about having a daily practice that we set time aside for that opportunity to listen and to trust. Would you agree that a daily practice is a tool?
Yes, for me. For
Right.
me, it has been for many, many years. I don't journey every day.
Sure.
I do it when it occurs to me, or I'm asked to, or I feel like it's needed. So I don't have a daily journey practice, but there's different aspects of shamanism, and it's honoring the directions. Sometimes it might be doing a ritual that you feel it's time for, like a ritual of letting go, a cleansing ritual, or a ceremony with your community. They're all part and parcel of shamanic work. It's not, excuse me, it's not just about journeying. It's about being that hollow bone. It's about being open to being of service, not only to yourself, but also being of service to other people, and your sense of community and what that means, and how people might ask you to help them in a given situation.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because it's different. I do astrological counseling, and that's one side of the brain in a sense. And then shamanism is like experiential, and it's the other side of the brain. And so being able to trust, being able to listen, being willing to be of service to your community, doing a ritual for yourself or for other people, or a ceremony like the 8 points of the calendar year, which is very divine feminine, goddess oriented kind of thing, but yet all the ancient shamanic cultures also honored the turn of the seasons.
Mhm. So let me just feedback what I'm hearing as tools for our listeners. So calling in the directions is a tool, and asking for support from your animal allies, guides, ancestors, helping spirits. Journey, if that's called for the day. Perhaps a ritual, perhaps a ceremony. Is there anything I left out?
Um, well, just my own personal things that I do that are really a part of how I live my life, in the day to day. Those other pieces, except for the calling in the directions, those other pieces are times I specifically set aside, um, a day here and there, sometimes every day, but not always every day. But the
Exactly.
calling in of the directions, not only asking for direction and wisdom and help in my personal life and the work I do with others, but also giving thanks and expressing my gratitude for their presence in my life and what has been given to me.
Beautiful. Do you do anything to close out your day, Jyoti?
Now I just fall into bed.
That's beautiful. I love it. Great. So you brought up that term, the hollow bone, a couple times. I think we should dive into it. I love that term, and it's so visual. It's hard to hear that without just seeing that bone. So tell me what that means to you.
What the hollow bone means to me, it's a couple different things. And I think of the eagle and how the eagle's bones are hollow. A lot of them are hollow so that they can get that loft, so that they can fly. They're the bird that can fly the closest to the sun. And so I think, and the eagle bone whistles, how they're just hollow and they can be used as whistles to call the spirits and call the directions. Um, in shamanism, hollow bone is a collective term for being able to get out of your own way.
Huh.
You know, I mean, it really is. I mean, if you are the hollow bone, then when you're journeying or working with someone else beside yourself, but with someone else, your mind doesn't get in there. Your opinions don't get in there. Your what you think this person needs, because how can we know that really? Only their soul knows. And so the hollow bone is just being that instrument of service to another person, where you can hear or you can see, depending on your orientation. I hear it, I listen, um, and sometimes I see what I'm being shown that is necessary for this person. Okay. So with yourself, being able to get out of your own way. And the practice of shamanism for me has infiltrated my day to day life, in the sense that there's times I can get out of my own way and just be with what I need to be with, instead of liking it or not liking it, or getting frustrated or not frustrated, going with the flow. So it's bled into my ordinary reality, in the way I live and how I've grown. And I'm very grateful for it, because it keeps me from being drawn into things that are either none of my business, or if I have an emotional hook, I can be a little detached and work on it myself without getting too enmeshed with other people's stuff. I can just be with my own stuff. And so the hollow bone to me just represents a symbol of being able to be with life and also journey in the journey world without getting sucked in emotionally and mentally to how you think it should be, quote unquote.
Well, there's a lot that's popping for me with that. I think what I'd like to explore a little bit, because I've heard you say this in classes, folks will ask, well, how do I know I'm not just making all this up, right? And I think that's tied in somehow to this hollow bone.
Yes, yes. It's an interesting question because it's, in a way, it's like a tightrope. You know what I mean? How to be empty in the sense of not having your thoughts and opinions and directing the flow and trusting and listening so that your allies, your helper spirits can show you what you need to know in that situation. Um, so I've had people journey for me, and I know when it's truth and when it's that person's mind that thinks I should know something.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's definitely discernible to me. And so I appreciate the hollow bone when the other person can be that hollow bone. So trusting your imagination is key to being able to do shamanic work. So people say to me, well, I started a journey and all of a sudden, all these things came to me, and, I was going into a storyline, and it's like, yes, why that storyline? It must have had meaning for you because there's 60,000 other storylines that could have come up. It's trusting your imagination. It's trusting the spirits that show up for you. It's trusting that you have an intention of good and of service and of learning. And so those can take you into experiences that really teach you. So when I wanted to start a body of work, I couldn't find teachers, and so I was told by someone, a shamanic practitioner, let your allies, let your helper spirits teach you. And I thought, wow, that's really trust that they're going to, teach me how to do this body of work that I have found no references for. And I just have to trust that this is the best way to do it. I don't want to say the right way, but the best way to do it. And so I did. And so over time, I had these experiences and I learned that deeper level of trust and faith, in a sense of not only trusting my own process and my own wisdom, but trusting these helper spirits who came to help me do what I do.
And that trust comes, and I've experienced this firsthand, Jyoti, by developing that relationship, by continually connecting with them to the point that you can just release all expectations that they're going to take care.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's like developing a friendship. I
Sure.
mean, maybe trust doesn't come right away, but with repeated interactions with that other person and sometimes confiding certain things or sometimes being a listener to the other person, I mean, you develop a deeper friendship, and with that comes trust. You can tell that this person has your back or is a good listener and will respond to you in ways that are helpful. And so it's the same with these helper spirits that have come to help you and guide you in your life.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the things I also have found is I know I'm really working in that hollow bone mode when I have an experience that I couldn't make up if I even tried. Like I don't even have those images or, storylines in my head.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. Because you get taken other places into other experiences than your day-to-day mindset would even have you conjure up.
right. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And then to have it confirmed, like let's say you do a soul retrieval for someone and then you bring back these pieces for them that have been missing in their life, energetics, and all of a sudden that person's life changes. That person all of a sudden can do the things that they haven't been able to do for years and had a longing to step back into or try for themselves. And all of a sudden the person is off and running into their own life and creating the life they really want to live. But they had missing pieces, missing energetics in a sense. And so their confidence level might have been low, or their own resources might have been skewed or splayed out and not focused. And all of a sudden, it's like they're back to themselves in their best self and they're ready to take on whatever's next in their life.
Sure. It's
So it's
beautiful.
very rewarding in that way to witness that not only in yourself, but in the people you might choose to work with.
Sure, sure.
And hollow bone, hearkening back to David Kowalewski's statement about it being like Buddhism in a sense, is about non-attachment. You're not attached. You're not attached to what you get for someone else. You're not attached to it turning out a certain way. So it brings in that non-attachment piece
Mhm, mhm.
also.
That's quite refreshing in today's world where in so many healing modalities, the patient or client approaches with attachments of what healing will look like, and the practitioner has attachments to what they believe. And we often get into these um, power struggles of almost and then feeling like they both failed when something different happens. And actually, they there may be healing going on many other levels that no one's even taking notice to.
Yes, yes, yes. And I feel like shamanism is a tool to really look at some of the deeper healing that wants to be shared or experienced.
Yeah. So, Jyoti, what's someone's role as a student of shamanism? What is their role in this world?
I think first, even though it doesn't seem like it in the beginning, I think ultimately it's about being of service to yourself, to your family, perhaps, but to your community. And so I think that as you develop skills and gather tools, because it is that, that you um, begin to see how what you've gathered, what you've learned could really help another person and even help groups of people, your sense of community. I mean, it doesn't have to be, people theater deep outside your house. It can be just a small group of people that you're working with, and that's your community. And how you share those resources. I mean, I'm at a point in my life where I'm giving back, giving back the tools I've gathered to get me where I am. And so I'm willing to share those tools with other people because I see how they've worked for me and where they've brought me.
Beautiful. Jyoti, we've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything else you feel that needs to be said today to finish this up?
No,
Perfect.
no.
Perfect. I love that. Um, hey, listeners, we are so happy to have you here. And I want you to know this is the first of what I hope many conversations to come. We'd also love to have your questions. So take a look at the show notes of this episode and feel free to email either one of us with questions about shamanism, about metaphysics, or grace, all combined that you might have. Jyoti, thank you from the bottom of my heart for
Thank you.
doing this. And I want to thank you on behalf of all of our listeners because you've just shared such a wealth of wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren. It's a pleasure.